Welcome all of you, the viewers of Poland Daily Culture. My name is Maria Kądzielska-Koper, and today we are taking you for a journey to Syria, because with us on Skype is Xavier Bassett, the coordinator for Syria, Egypt and Lebanon for the aid to the church in need. Xavier, again, thank you very much for showing up in our show.
Thank you for having me.
And you're calling us from the Middle East, where you live and where you work every day. Yourself being a Australian, which is sort of funny, but at least the weather is not that very different than with your home land. Being many kilometers away from home, there in the Middle East where people speak Arabic and things are very different. Tell me how your average day looks like, and what you're doing, people you meet, food you eat, and the challenges you also have to sort of deal with.
So on a daily basis, there are a lot of challenges. The biggest one is electricity, right? Right now in the middle of summer, being able to sleep without air conditioning is very challenging. So I often wake up quite tired. However, I do love it. And it is a real privilege to be able to meet the local church. And one of the real privileges of this work is that I get to meet, I think, on a daily basis, many people who are unrecognized saints. Many of the local priests and religious and lay people leading the social and pastoral initiatives of the church, they've chosen to stay in Syria or Lebanon when actually many of their family had left the country. They left in the middle of the war or the economic crisis. And they give a very beautiful message of service, right? I think about a Franciscan priest that I know in Aleppo. He was actually transferred to Rome to work, but he found it too boring, is what he said. And so he came back to Aleppo to keep working with the poor and to keep working with the suffering. And I think that's such a beautiful witness that we see from many of the people working in the church. And a big part of my work is talking to and listening to people to understand the local situation, talking to local families, and especially to people who have suffered in the last few years. One of the moving experiences that I had not too long ago was going to northeast Syria and talking, for example, to a family whose son and father had been kidnapped by ISIS, and then they were released. And they said to me two really beautiful things. Number one, they want to stay in Syria, in spite of the fact that actually many people are trying to persuade them to leave, actively trying to get them to leave their country. And number two, this experience of being kidnapped strengthened their faith rather than challenging it or putting it into question. While, of course, it was a deeply challenging experience, I think it made it very real to them, their dependence on God, which is something that we all should feel, but most of the time we don't necessarily feel it because we're not put into a situation as extreme or challenging as that. And it's quite remarkable because the stories that we hear from the Christians in many ways resemble the stories of the Christians in the very early church. Before Constantine, while it was still spreading, and they had all sorts of problems all the time. And it is still happening today in the Middle East for the local Christian population.
This sounds really amazing, but also very sad, the fact that such things can happen. Well, thanks to God, they were released and not murdered by ISIS. But just the fact that your life and your everyday life it depends on God. Of course, it depends on God, even here in every part of the world, but you can feel it probably much closer, much stronger when the threat is so real, and the fact that this prayer is left for many, just this one thing to do. Well, all the prayers to the church in Syria, and that's probably the message which we'll leave you with, the viewers of Poland Daily Culture. If you are Christians, Catholics, or just people of faith, then definitely think about the Church of Syria. Pray for the Church of Syria, and I do hope that it will flourish and will grow back in despite of the war as a beautiful community. And again, thank you for watching our show.